Welcome back to another episode of The Ordinary Experience. Today I have with me the other side to my wonderful parents, my mum. Hi, mum.
Hi Viraj, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good.
How has your day been today?
Being busy, productive?
It's good to hear. Well, today I'd like to talk to you about a different topic than what I talked to Dad about. I'd like to dive into what it's like to be a stay-at-home mum, the myths around being a stay-at-home mum, or in your case, your life, the stuff that we don't see, uh, the feelings of being a stay-at-home mum, and then what it's like now that you've got I'm working, Samir's working, Dad's working, and the free time in air quotes that you might have. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome. Well, so I guess we better start from the beginning. Did you have a job in your past life?
I did. I had a career which I studied for 4 years for. I was a paediatric nurse. I qualified in 1994 from Epsom and Kingston School of Nursing. And I got my first job at St George's Hospital on the day surgery unit. And then later I moved to the paediatric infectious diseases ward.
Right.
Busy hospital, a very well-known hospital, so it was great. So
Why did you pick nursing?
nursing, it was my passion. I'd always wanted to work with children.
Is there a reason behind that, or is it just a feeling?
No, just something I was passionate about. I loved kids. I guess I intrinsically was a caring person. And I think to go into a profession like that, you need to have some care and compassion, I think, and I guess that was it. That was my one mission in life. I wanted to work with children. Much to my mother's disapproval, because for that, being Indian and being a nurse, or what were you going to do? You're going to wipe people's bums all day. Well, no, that's not what I was going to do. But they tried to talk me out of it, and I think my mum didn't actually believe I was going to do it until I packed my bags on the day I left.
Really?
At 17. Yep. So I didn't go very far. I did apply to the most furthest places in England, like Leeds and Newcastle and places like that, but didn't end up going there. I ended up in Epsom, which was, on the Waterloo and Northern Line, which was great. So I could get home easily, but I was far away enough. Because I'm sure, you've been to university, and when you were choosing universities, you wanted to choose the one that was the furthest away from home to get away.
What was the furthest one? I think I chose Leeds.
Leeds and Bristol, yeah. So I did my training and, got my first job. That was in 94. 95, I got married to your father. And 96, I was still working. And I was living with your grandparents. Your dad was living in Portsmouth, and he came home at weekends. His job was down there, and I was looking after them. Your grandfather, Bapuji, had been diagnosed by this time with terminal cancer. So I was looking after them and working, and that was happening. And then Dad would come home at the weekends, and we'd have some time together, and he'd go back on a Sunday night. And then, unfortunately, he died 9 months later, your grandfather, and life had to resume at some point, so we carried on. But your bar was still with us, your grandma. And I then fell pregnant with you, and you were born in November 97.
Okay.
So I was on maternity leave for 1 year. 6 months was statutory, but I took a year because I wanted to spend some time and get you to an age where I was comfortable leaving you.
What would you mean by that? Comfortable leaving me?
Well, you've had some bonding time as a parent. We'd been to see these daycares where we'd walked in and walked out and thought, no, I don't want to leave my child here. I can't possibly. When you were born, I remember looking at you in the crib, and I don't think it dawns on you until that person or that child is born, where you think, holy moly, I'm responsible for you for the next 18 years of your life.
What's that like? Is that like
That's scary. That is so scary. Let me tell you. Everybody had gone home and I looked at you and I thought, oh my goodness. I'm responsible for you. I've got to take care of you. Nothing can prepare you.
So it was just you by yourself?
Yeah, obviously you'd been born and Dad had gone home.
Oh, so it was just me and you?
Yeah. And we'd come to the decision that I was going to take care of you 3 days a week and I was going to go back to work for 3 days a week. So still got 2 days with you, which all seemed very idealistic and yeah, brilliant. This was going to work because Dad had a job and he had to carry on with that. Unfortunately, death struck us again in the family, and your aunt, your dad's brother's wife, passed away in the September of 98.
Right.
And I was due to go back in the October, and she had 3 children she left behind and a very broken husband. Her children were 5 and twins of 4. And sort of your dad and I started discussing my return to work, etc. And he just went, Nish, he said, you don't need to go back to work. These children need you.
This is that infamous conversation he was talking about on his podcast.
Yes. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He said, we can't just leave these children in the lurch. They need you. They've just lost their mother. So I was torn at the time, thinking...
Did you have another moment there where you were like, I could be responsible for these kids?
Yep, very much so.
So you've gone from 1 to 4
yeah.
in the space of a year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But I was already responsible for them while their mother was ill in hospital.
Right.
So they were already under our roof. The father was obviously working still and all over the place, really not coping very well with life. So we came to the decision, okay. I mean, I think I was torn between, oh my goodness, I've taken a year off. They've given me all this time off and now I'm not going to go back. But they understood that my circumstances had changed. And so I parted company with the NHS and took on the role of, being a mother for 4.
So you went from being a mother to nothing, no one, to being a mother to 4 in the space of 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like?
Well, you were still young and you weren't at school and things like that. And I had your grandmother was very good support in that sense that she would look after you while I ran them to school and did all the things that they needed. And then she moved in with them. She moved in with them, but I was still overseeing day-to-day things, but they were under their roof with their dad and grandma. And then in 99, their dad remarried. Their mother came over from India. Their mum came over from India. And again, I was settling this lady into a new country who she spoke no English, didn't really have a clue. So there was still a lot of support needed to that family, which I continued doing along with you in tow. Did
you ever think that you were the one getting the bad end of the stick at any point during this time? Where you were like, oh, Jesus, I've got to care for all of these people?
Not bad end of the stick, no. That's not how I saw it. I just did what I thought had to be done. Settling this woman in such that she integrated well is what I wanted for her and for the children. You know, getting her a new wardrobe of clothes so that she fitted in. She wasn't just out in her Indian clothes when she went to open evenings. You know, your dad found her a driving instructor that spoke Hindi because she couldn't speak English, so that she could get driving, so that would make life easier. I wasn't toing and froing her to school and back. You know, they had their maternal grandparents, and the maternal grandfather was very helpful. He often did the school runs. But they were old. They were very old. Eventually, they sort of got on with their life. I was pregnant with Samir. So I had Samir in 2000, by which time we had moved to our second home. And your ma was still living with with your uncle, just round the corner. We literally moved from our first house to our second home, and it was like 5 minutes.
The house that you just sold overnight.
Yeah, that one. And we actually moved closer to your uncle, a road. We lived off the road that your uncle lived on. And it was convenient. It was really convenient at the time. You know, it all worked. But obviously, as you know...
Sorry, were you ever sad or like unsure of what the hell you were doing at that point in your life?
No.
Or were you just doing, like you said, what needed to be done?
Yeah, just was getting on with life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, I think you had started... So we'd had this stint in December 99 to March 2000 where we'd gone to Malaysia. You and I had gone to Malaysia.
Yes.
We stayed with your uncle, your maternal uncle and aunt. They'd moved there. You started nursery there. So, you know, in between everything that was going on, you know, we were still able to have the odd holiday. We took this opportunity to go there. From Malaysia, we went to India to have your hair shaved off. It was a customary thing that we do.
Should have kept my locks, man.
But your dad he did come to Malaysia and then he came back, but we stayed. It was a great time we had. So, and then you started nursery, I think in the April.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's when I found out I was pregnant with Samir. But by the time Samir came along in December 2000, you were an independent young man,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that you were at nursery full time. You know, all the things that a mother, I wanted was for you to be nappy trained, independent, being at nursery, so that you'd had your time, you'd had our undivided attention, and you were now having your social time at school, and I was able to sort of have time with Samir.
Right.
Unfortunately, at 3 months, your brother got meningitis.
What's that like as a mother when you're...
That's really scary, having been a paediatric nurse and knowing the consequences that he could die.
Sod's law, right? In a way.
Yeah.
Is that what you thought
I was
at the time?
there. Not knowing which one it was.
So there's
two types of meningitis, and he had the less severe one.
But at that point in time, you didn't know?
No.
Right.
Until the results came back.
Mm-hmm.
But from a safety point of view, they'd taken the fluid out of his spine, called a lumbar puncture, and they blue lighted us to St George's, ironically, to the ward I used to work on, where you have individual rooms. It turned out it was the less severe type. He was put on antibiotics, and we returned home after a few days.
Right.
But he was a jittery baby. He was a bit of a jittery. He had reflux and didn't sleep very well, and so that time, you know, bringing him up was it was a bit of a nightmare, and it was a bit of a shock because that's not what I had with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but he was gorgeous.
Did you ever compare us at that age? Where you were like, oh, Viraj was like this, why isn't he like...
You can't but, because the only comparison I had was you.
Uh-huh. What about other kids that were... Other mums that had kids? Or were their stories different?
Well, I didn't really know that many. I only knew your friends' mums.
Okay.
Who were your age.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, as he was growing up, we realised he wasn't talking very clearly. In fact, he wasn't talking much at all.
Mm.
And everything he was pointing to, or you were doing the talking for.
Mm-hmm.
So, had him checked out with a paediatrician. There was nothing sort of no mental delayed development in him, which is what I feared big time. And sometimes meningitis can have that residual effect. So he was fine, but we soon got on to speech therapists, occupational therapists. He had spatial awareness issues. So that's basically, you know, when he's sitting next to you, you will have noticed when you were younger, he'd be sitting next to you, but the next thing he'd be in your very personal space because he's not aware of his personal space.
Mm-hmm. So
it'd be like leaning all over you. And I do remember you going, "Samu, get off me," you know, kind of thing. But we did all the therapy that was needed. You know, I'd have speech therapists going in to his school. So he'd be taken out of lessons, he'd have speech therapy. And yeah, it all worked. We did intense therapy at home. I think your dad went and bought 200 tennis balls, and you used to stand in the hallway here, throwing the ball at him so he would catch it.
Really?
Yeah. Your grandma my mum, so your nanny made bean bags for him out of lentils that you would throw back and forth. It was basically, he needed to have good coordination.
Were you ever scared that the doctors got it wrong at that time?
No, because we could see the improvements. If we followed the therapy, he was doing fine. And the one tip I'd been given by your nursery headmistress was stop Viraj, i.e. Big Brother, talking for him.
Well, he talks like till the cows come home now.
Oh, you wouldn't know it. You would not even know it, right? So, yeah, that was one thing, that you were very protective of him.
Right.
So if he needed something and he couldn't say it, you'd come to me or you'd go to the teachers, and we'd just have to say to him, you need to get Samir to come and speak to us. And that soon worked. But you used to get very cross about it because you thought we were being very mean to him.
Right, okay.
And not listening, you know. But the idea was that he would come and try. And I guess there was a bit of laziness in him because he knew you did it. He had you wrapped around his little finger.
Yeah, it seems that way, doesn't it?
But yeah, you know, so he by 5 you would not have known that he had speech delay, and today there's no sign of it at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's, after a while we would like take the batteries out.
All the time.
So when he was 5 and he started going to full-time school, the other children were kind of settled, they were getting on with their life, you know, with their new mother and father. So I decided to go and do a refresher course.
So get back into nursing.
It was a back to nursing refresher course, which even in 5 years had completely changed. But I did that. I then got on the bank agency work with hospital for children that's just behind our house. I did some shift work there when I could, and I had to work around your dad. He was often travelling or doing long hours, but my main priority was always you and your brother.
Right.
You know.
So this was the first point where you kind of put yourself, not first, but further forward than you had in the past. You were doing your own thing. Yes,
I mean, in between taking care of you and your brother, there was always something in the family happening. You know, your grandma was quite a sickly lady, so there was always hospital appointments. I mean, she was under every department possible at the hospital, so there was always an appointment to take her to, and she trusted me implicitly. She wouldn't go anywhere. She wouldn't ask anybody else, you know, and nobody really had the time for her, to be honest. I mean, Dad was working, and Dad and I it was our assumed roles that this is what we did.
Did you ever have a conversation and say, I wish I hadn't done that?
No, not at all.
Do you ever look back on it now and think, what would have happened if he had become the stay-at-home dad and you had continued working? Or has that ever crossed your mind?
That was never a scenario that we ever thought of. Although, speak to your dad and he'll say, oh, I'd love to have done that. Absolutely love to have done that. But he would have got bored so quickly. Even now, you know, he talks about retiring, but I think, yeah, he needs something to keep him occupied.
I think he does.
So, yeah, that life continued, and I did that. So that fizzled out purely because I wasn't doing enough agency work.
Right.
Because of Dad's hours. So then I thought, okay, I need to do something that works between the school hours of my children. So I got a job as a teaching assistant at a little private prep school in Epsom.
Keeping with the theme of working with kids, I assume.
Yes, yeah, and it was great. I loved it. Really enjoyed that, and it worked. I dropped you guys to school. I was there to pick you up after school, or if you went to a club, you know, I was there basically. So all along, you were always my main priorities. No matter what job I did, you were always my priority, you and your brother. And then the private school sector was going through a bit of a rough time. They weren't getting many children applying. So they merged the two classes, and therefore I didn't have a job then.
Right.
And then your dad had started a company with 2 partners and needed a sort of office assistant, admin lady. So he kind of, you know, proposed that, and I thought, okay, didn't have a clue what I was going to be doing or what I was going to do, or how I was going to do it, but it worked. It was from home. So we set up, this room that we're sitting in now was our office. We sat back to back and we worked.
What was that like?
That was challenging at times.
Was it? Do you think it was the first time you really pushed yourself post
Yeah,
stay at home
yeah,
mummy?
because there were skills there I was learning that I'd never done before.
And what about the
I
skills that you'd gained from the, I don't know, what was it, 8 years, 9 years?
Yeah, those were sort of organisational skills, time management. That was all that just all came naturally to me.
Right.
You know, dealing with people. I was still dealing with people, but it was over the phone. So I'm a real people-centred person.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Take no nonsense though.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we did that. I was learning accounts. I was learning to deal with HMRC. I mean, I was learning to get money out of clients that weren't paying up, but I was doing it. It was brilliant. Invoicing, you name it. At the same time, you and your brother were there, running you back and forth to school, attending your whatever activities, plays, assemblies, anything that was going on with you guys. Your grandma had become more sickly, so she was coming to us, staying with us for a while she was ill. Then she'd get better. Then she'd go back to her home in Tooting. Still her hospital appointments and all sorts still going on.
Juggling quite a lot.
Quite a lot, yeah.
So would you say it's more than you ever had at that throughout your, I don't know, how old were we? Like 8? How old was I? 8, 9, 10?
Yeah, I think
Around
that
that
was
age?
when Bar was ill, when she was diagnosed with cancer. She had a prognosis of 3 months. Those years were the most intense, I would say. There was a hell of a lot going on in this house.
How do you cope with that? Because obviously Dad can't cook to save his life. Sorry, Pops.
Oh, give him credit. He can.
Yeah,
he can if he wants to.
He cooks a good spaghetti arrabbiata and a good curry, but...
well, no, I was doing all of that. All of that.
So you're doing all of that, running us to school, coming to all the
everything
relevant things, looking after Bar and PA.
Yeah, and trying to have a social life somewhere along the line.
Right.
Yeah. There were times we couldn't, and your dad and I just drowned ourselves in some alcohol, and we were fine. We couldn't leave her. I mean, we had very good support of the hospice, and some very good friends and neighbours.
Right.
I wouldn't say the support from family was brilliant, but we got to a point where if you expect, you get disappointed. That's one of my mottos. So don't expect.
Don't be disappointed.
Don't be disappointed. Just get on with it. I mean, the Princess Alice Hospital was fantastic. Absolutely amazing place, Bar had gone in there for respite. I think we went on one holiday. But there were many holidays where I didn't accompany you guys. You'll remember going to the Eden Project in Cornwall.
I do.
Yeah, that was something educational Dad wanted to do. I couldn't accompany you there. You'd gone to Alton Towers. You'd been to Snowdonia.
Did you ever feel left out?
I did. I wanted to come because we used to have such a great time. Our holidays were always adventures, but there was a higher purpose. There was Bar. She needed to be taken care of, and nobody else was willing to do that. So she was our responsibility.
Why do you think it always fell on you? Do you not think Dad could have done it? Or was it just your assumed roles?
I think Bar being female, she felt more comfortable with me. And why did it always fall on us? I did often ask that question. And I think it was, my theory is, we just did. We didn't ask questions. If there was a problem, your dad and I were on it. And I think at times I do feel taken advantage of. Now when I look back, when the haze cleared, oh, well, they're doing it, let them get on with it, kind of thing. Oh, they're best suited for this.
But how does that work when it's family?
Well, you tell me, hey?
I'm still figuring that one out myself.
Exactly. And your dad and I are beyond figuring that one out. It's not worth it. We know what we did from the bottom of our hearts. And that's what matters. So your Bar was eventually here with us, living under our roof. She actually survived 2 years.
Post her
Prognosis of 3 months. Oh, there'd be visitors in and out. That front door never stopped.
Yeah, I do remember there was quite a weird
and everybody who
like
came was always fed, watered.
Yep.
Always. Gatherings, family gatherings, everything happened. It was a hub. Unfortunately, we lost Bar in 2012, March of 2012.
Right.
And that was a huge void. huge void for
Of
me.
course, because you've gone from this chaos of dealing with everything in the house, groups, people coming, going, school, bar, dad, business, PAing, to none of that, right? Or
Yeah.
not looking after bar at least, and that's a huge
She was
chunk
the
of time.
biggest void for me, 17 years.
So how do you fill said void? Or do you fill said void? How does that even feel?
Well, I very quickly after that found a job, which was
Why?
not in the home. And it was like normality. What the life we'd lived, we thought was normal. But I then got a job at a local investment house, financial investment house,
Why did you get a job?
because you guys were quite more independent now.
Mhm.
You didn't need me as much, and I had to do something for myself, because I knew that in years to come, you guys would be flying the nest.
Mhm.
And it was almost me getting ready for that. I could have sat at home and waited for you till at 3:30 coming home, but that was, and then when you fly the nest in years to come, I'd be going, oh my God, I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
So I was preparing myself. Your dad
So
and
that
I,
was that isn't in hindsight that you said that. That is actually what you did.
no, that is in hindsight what I'm saying, but that is
Okay.
what was happening
Okay.
with that unbeknown, I guess.
As Dad likes to do, he likes to move things in the background.
Yeah. And it's not a bad thing,
Mhm.
but it was a job that I absolutely hated. I cannot tell you, I had 8 weeks training on this job. It was a call centre for an investment house. I had financial advisors shutting down the phone to me
Mhm.
because they couldn't remember what investments their clients had.
Mhm.
And there was only certain information I could give them. And all sorts of, and I was like, I was in tears. I was so miserable in this job that your dad wrote the resignation letter, said, and take this in and give it to them. Which point I did eventually. And they were like, no, we'll move you to a different department. We love your skill set. I was like, oh God, okay. So they moved me to customer care, which wasn't as bad as being on the phone to these, what we call these financial advisors and various people, arrogant little so-and-sos. But I was now dealing with the customers directly,
Right.
the wealth clients, as they called them. But again, it just wasn't me. It just wasn't me. I'm a people-centered person. I need to be seeing people, talking to people, So I left. 6 months, I left.
Mhm.
I've never been so miserable in my life.
Why do you
and I think even you guys have picked up on this.
Why do you think you were miserable though? Like, was it just because it wasn't for you, or was there something else at play?
Yeah, I was so used to working on managing my own time,
Mhm.
and because I juggled so much, this was like, it was so regimental, so regimental. I had to clock in at this time. I had to literally log onto my computer at this time. I had to put up my hand if I wanted to go to the loo.
Mhm.
I had to have a lunch time at this time.
Mhm.
I had to log off at exactly this time. I mean, that was just too rigid and regimental for
I
me.
don't think you know this, but obviously our rooms are back to back. Well, the room I used to live in, and I didn't know this, but you don't know this, but I could hear you crying to Dad in bed when you guys think I'd gone to bed, and I was unsure why you were crying, and it was really
Yeah.
weird because you are this. I find it odd because you've seen death so many times in hindsight, and you'd assume you are the strongest person from an emotional standpoint, but it's like you go into what is normal, in air quotes, or what society considers normal, and you not couldn't function, but it was so different, and you couldn't deal with that. Looking back, I find that really, like, kind of really disturbing in a way, because you can deal with death really well. Obviously, it impacts you, but you couldn't deal with the regimented,
normality.
or what is considered
Yeah,
normal.
yeah, that I couldn't. And I think that's what normal is to most people.
Mhm.
9 to 5 job, you come home at the end of the day, the family sits around the table, eats.
And that works for some people.
Yeah, but it had never been our way of life.
Mhm.
Although I always made sure that if and when Dad was home on time, that we all sat at the table together
That's the
of
one
an
thing
evening.
we always do, yeah.
But yeah, so I left that. I then got offered a job by a family friend, which was great. That was very people-centred. It was in a music company. I used to drive down to Dartford. Again, it worked. I was allowed to choose my hours that I wanted to work, so I made sure that you and Samir was still my priority, dropped you to school, picked you up at the end of the day. So that kind of worked. Enjoyed that, really, really enjoyed that. And then that came to an end about a year later. And then it was about 2015. So I was still, as I said, you were the priority. Dad was not working such crazy hours. He'd left the company and now had a job up in London.
Ah, yes.
At Cognified, and he wasn't working such crazy hours, but he loved that job. He loved that job.
I do remember.
And when that came to an end, I think that's when I actually accepted your grandma's death, and I grieved.
Right.
I hadn't grieved. But in 2015,
did you ever deal with Granddad's death?
No,
in 1996.
No, your dad was hit very badly by that one. I supported him big time.
So you didn't grieve through that process?
Well, I did, but I grieved differently.
Okay.
I think I grieved more with your grandma because
17 years. I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah, I'd actually calculated I'd spent more time with her than I did with my own mother because I left home at 17.
That is wild.
Yeah. But in February 2015, your dad said, "Oh, I've got a job interview." I was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah, I always knew he's always looking. He went, "It's in Malaga."
Did you go, "Where's that?"
No, I knew where that was. Do you want to come with me? He said, "I've gone through all the interviews and now it's face to face and they want me to go out there." Well, it just happened to be half term. So somehow I arranged for you guys to be taken care of, and I went with Dad. It was quite nice. Stayed in a hotel, he had the interview, and we explored Malaga. Thought, this is a nice place. It was February, it was a bit dull and gloomy, but it was still nice. Came back and he got the job. So he literally accepted a job and wrote a resignation letter. That's how he did it. And I supported him wholeheartedly. But the only thing we couldn't do was go as a family because you were embarking on your
A-levels.
Samir was embarking on his GCSEs. So we as a family, I remember, and I'm sure you remember Dad sitting down, going through even the finances with you, doing that spreadsheet of euros to pounds and if the euro fluctuated. Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
And Samir's eyes going, "Oh, wow, all these numbers."
I think it's the first time we realised that Dad had money.
So I supported him wholeheartedly, and we made the promise to you guys that as soon as you break up on a Friday for holidays, we'd be on a plane. And literally we were.
Oh, it was good times.
Brilliant.
What was it like having us? Okay, so actually, now let me ask this question. I wasn't a very nice person during my A-levels.
You do keep saying this.
No, this is fact. And I distinctly remember you saying to me, "I cannot wait for you to leave."
Well, yeah, that was...
To provide some context, I was very passive-aggressive, very aggressive, primarily because I was stressed and was hell-bent on going to university. But did you ever think you'd be saying those words?
No, but you'd driven me to the edge where you were doing your university application and you'd specifically been told by your head of year, do not make your firm and your insurance universities that want the same grades. One has got to be higher and one is lower. But you were adamant that you were going to go to
Bristol.
Loughborough and Bristol,
Yeah.
which both wanted the same grades. And I couldn't get through to you. Could not get, and I remember exactly where I was in your bedroom talking to you. I came halfway down the stairs and I went, "I just cannot wait for you to go." And I heard this little voice, "You don't mean that, Mummy." And that was Samir from his bedroom. And I went, "Yes, I do." It was tough at times without Dad because you guys were growing, but I was always in touch with you both in the sense of and knew exactly what's happening. I had to have, maybe a little tougher grip on you both. But you weren't wayward children. You know, you weren't. You didn't go crazy. We have an open and honest relationship, and
I had one drunk episode.
Yes, but Dad was in the UK at that time. Dad was in the UK, and you learnt your lesson very quickly.
Yes, I did.
But again, we sat down, we talked about it.
Yes.
You know, I even said to you both, if you want to drink, we drink together. If you want to smoke, we smoke together. If you want to do drugs, we do it together. And I think you both looked at me like, oh, we got some crazy mother here. But that's the way it was. Why go and do it and get high somewhere and not know and get yourself into danger?
Mm-hmm.
You know, balancing life, bringing you both up with our Indian culture and values, but yet, I mean, I was not born in this country, but I'm thoroughbred in England, so I know what it's like to grow up in this country.
Did you ever when you thought about bringing us up? Did you think about it like, I'm going to bring these children up English, I'm going to bring these children up Indian, or was that ever a conversation that you had with yourself or with Dad?
No, the only conversation I had with Dad about bringing you both up was that your first language was to be English, and you were only going to speak in English, and you were not going to speak in Gujarati.
Was there a reason for that?
Well, yes. It was something that happened to him in his childhood. I was brought up bilingual. The rules in my house were I came home from school and I spoke Gujarati. I went to school and I spoke English, and I was absolutely fine.
Can I ask you, just on that point, what language do you think in?
I think in English.
Okay.
I very much think in English.
Because I know Dad thinks in Gujarati.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he does.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is why sometimes sentences take longer to come out of his mouth.
I very much speak...
Think in English.
Thinking in English,
right.
Yeah. But when he was at school, only spoke Gujarati. His parents' command of English wasn't brilliant. My parents were different. And he went to school and he would only speak Gujarati.
Right.
So he didn't understand. So he'd had a bit of a delayed start to English, and he didn't want that for you guys. So that was the only thing. But no, you were, as far as I saw it, bringing you both up with our Indian culture and values, but at the same time feeling fully integrated into life in England. Was how, I guess, no, I was brought up more Indian, but, you know, as you know, we celebrate all the Indian festivals. We celebrated all the Christian festivals, you know, Christmas, Easter. We know all about it. Islam, Buddhism, or everything. All the different cultures. We've taken in holiday to different places. Very open to learn all this, you know. But I think we were getting to a stage when your dad was in Spain that you guys wanted to go to more parties. There was more happening at school. And I think for me, my only worry was the alcohol. But I think you were both fine. And all I'd asked you to both be was honest with me.
Yep.
Are you going to drink? Have you drunk? If you are, I'll pick you up, drop you off, whatever. You know. And I think we built a good bond, the three of us, while we were here. But we'd see Dad every holiday. Dad came back not very often, but we were always out there.
Yeah.
Then you would spend some summers here working, and then you'd come and join us. I mean, it was great. You'd finished your mock exams and you flew off to Spain.
What was that time like for you? Like just your life then? Forget about us, forget about...
Well...
What was like your marriage like during that point? Living between two different countries. You know, obviously you're here looking after us. Dad is out there.
Well, we had a very strong relationship. I mean, we spoke every day. And if we weren't going to, we knew that one or the other was busy. We'd always catch up. I think it was way before the days of Zoom, wasn't it?
Yep.
But we... Yeah.
We still used to have our family scrums on a Sunday.
Yes, yeah. But what happened is I also got myself a job in the April. Well, I'd applied in the February, and I got this job in the April of 2015. So I started working. So my days were also filled. I, in fact, was at your school, wasn't it? It was exams invigilator. So again, working with children. So that kept me very busy. So again, I was working term time, and we were on holiday when it was holidays, and we were in Malaga, where we were building another life. We were having new friends. And I think you both were much freer, and we felt much freer to let you go out. You were out late at night. You know, you had friends that came over and visited. And it was just a different way of life. And it was very, very refreshing for us. After everything we'd been through, this was like a real godsend, a real, real godsend for us.
Right.
And then, yeah, Dad came back. So all the while, I was always the one holding the fort with you and Samir. But
Yep.
you were also getting more and more independent now. And you were
So
working in the summers.
Yeah, I was working in summers. I'd gone to university during that period of time.
Yes, you went in 2016.
2016.
You went to university, so I had Samir here.
So what was that like, just you and him?
Yeah, that was...
Got even more time on your hands.
Oh, but I was working.
Yeah, of course.
I was working, and I wasn't just working as an invigilator, because there were other jobs that people needed me in the school. I was doing those.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was me and Samir. We again, now it was from 4 to 3 to 2. He was busy, obviously, with his GCSEs, and then went on to do his A-levels. Dad came back as he sat his final GCSE, so Dad was back then. So then there was 3 of us again. It was fine. I think he was learning to drive. He eventually then, I guess for me, the biggest thing was when you both learned to drive and you could take yourselves off to school, and I didn't have to do that school run anymore.
One time we used to get up some ridiculous hour, like 5:30 or 5:45. Because Samir wanted to have breakfast at school and was adamant that he'd have to have breakfast at school with his friends.
Yeah. But slowly, you know, I was relinquishing my duties or my responsibilities as a mother.
Mm-hmm.
But that was intentional as well, such that you guys were getting your independence. You were learning, you were running this house while I wasn't here. You know, there's some summers I was there, you were here. But you knew what to do. And I think it was a great way for you, those 2 summers, to be ready for university.
Yep.
As well.
Most definitely. Looking after myself, cooking for myself.
And I think there was one summer both of you were here working. He was doing he was
Yes.
on NCS and you were working on NCS.
Yes. I had to look after him. That was fun.
Yeah, but that was your bonding time. And then June 2019, Dad got a job, he got a new job, but then he transferred to India.
Okay, can we rewind a little?
Yes.
I suffered from self-diagnosed depression during that period of time.
Yes, while you were at university.
While in my 3rd year at university, as Dad was going off or had gone off to India. Was going off to India. And I told you about it. I'd been suffering from it for a while, and then I told you about it in the December of 2019. Right. 2018.
Yes.
What was that like as a mother for you to hear that and be like, oh wow, okay, this is real close to home now. This isn't just some, makeshift belief thing that people talk about in the media, or this stigmatism.
Well, initially, I think your dad and both our reactions were, where did we go wrong? Where the hell did we go wrong? What did we do? And you kind of beat yourself up about it for a while, which we did. And then, we kicked into action and thought, no, actually, we haven't done anything wrong. Sometimes these things do happen, but how are we going to deal with it? Mm-hmm. How can we help him? And that's what we embarked on, helping you to get through this in any which way we could, support you, and just be there for you. If you remember in the Easter of your final year, I said to you, pack your bags, come home. You just need to go in for your exams. I mean, you're quite a stubborn mule in yourself. And nope, I'm not coming home. I can't come home. I need to stay here. So, fine, we gave you the space. And slowly, and we even said to you, if you can't talk to us and you feel better going to a counsellor or anything like that, we'll do it. We'll do anything we can for you. Mm-hmm. And I hope you felt supported. It's not always easy to know what to do.
Yeah, it's not, because not many people want to openly talk about it like I do.
No, nobody. it's a real taboo thing, isn't it?
Yep.
Real taboo thing. And you've come out openly, you've talked about it, and yet still people would not approach me or say, gosh, I didn't realise, or God, how is he doing, or whatever. But that's fine, But it's really, really interesting because, like you say, it's a real taboo subject, but it shouldn't be, because there are so many people out there. And when you talk about it, and Dad's philosophy and motto is always, if you talk about it, people can know, people can help, and people can know that somebody's been through this.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole point of the podcast, right?
Yes.
I guess in a way it shouldn't be called the ordinary experience, but the extraordinary experience.
Yeah. And it's fantastic what you're doing. I know some people may not agree and think, oh gosh, this will impact your future employment because now employers go over your social media accounts and things. You'll be affected and you won't get a job. Well, actually, no. Well, then they're not worthy of you, is what I'd say, to be honest.
I believe some things have to be said. All things can be said if you want them to, but in the case of this, a lot of people suffer with it silently. A lot of people don't know who to turn to, and I was one of those individuals who never thought that it would happen to me. And sod's law.
No, nor did we.
It happens to us, and it's very much us. It's not just me, because it impacted everyone.
Yes.
But I try and use this platform to help others be the best version of themselves, talk about the things that can't be talked about, share the experiences that they've had and the learnings that they've got, like you are as a mother, and dealing and helping them deal with whatever they need to deal with.
Yeah, and I guess what we didn't do is wallow in self-pity of, oh my God, what's happening to him.
I guess you do for a while, right, though?
We did, but we had Dad and I strong enough. We talked to each other, and sometimes he'd get down and I'd say, no, hang on a minute, or vice versa, and we'd find a way forward.
I think during our time, because we went to India together, and actually if we rewind a little bit before that, we went on a road trip together, and
yes,
that was a bonding time again of 2.5 weeks of me and you together.
And we have our clashes. We often have, I mean, they've become less and less, but on the road trip we had clashes. In India we had clashes.
Varanasi, Bangalore, all over the place.
But this is all part and parcel of life. And people think, oh God, I would never admit that. Well, why not? Yes, I do clash with my son.
And it's good. Because we go, we fight, we make up, we have a conversation about it, and we move on. Yeah. And we learn from that. Or at least try to.
Yeah. And, we've given you, what does your dad say? The freedom to think, but not to do.
Something like that. Something along those lines.
But, you're 23 years old. The situation is such that you haven't moved out of home because, well, COVID has hit. You haven't got yourself a job. But in past times, I guess at this stage, you might well have moved out and be living on your own. You're an independent person. So why can you not do that under my roof?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what we're trying to do here. Yes, I have always said you respect each other. That's our house rules.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment you're not going anywhere because of COVID.
Yeah,
but
just work and that's it.
It's a different way of life. And there's many people, I'm sure, in this position where their children are not able to move out.
Agreed.
But there's one thing I have to say is never, ever underestimate the role of a stay-at-home mum, because that in itself is a career.
It's a beautiful note to end on.
Thank you.
No, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time to dive into personal topics with both me, about yourself. It's not easy for everyone to talk about death, depression, their life, but thank you for being so forthcoming. And hopefully we can do this again.
Thank you for having me and letting me share my experiences. I mean, there's lots and lots, and one day maybe you can read it in my memoirs.
I'd love to. I would absolutely love to.
Thank you for having me, Viraj.
See you later.
It's been a pleasure. Bye.